In the quiet, tree-lined suburbs of Cambridge, England, nestled among ivy-covered homes and pristine lawns, lived Dr. Edward Langston, a respected surgeon, a loving father of two, and, as the world would soon learn, a cold-blooded killer. This is the story of how one man fooled an entire community, hid his crimes behind surgical precision, and triggered an international investigation that shocked Europe. Edward Langston was a celebrated trauma surgeon at Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge. Known for his impeccable bedside manner and charity work in war-torn countries, he was a media darling, a man who could seemingly do no wrong. He lived with his wife Margaret and their two children, Daniel and Sophie, in a luxurious Edwardian home. Neighbors described him as charming, soft-spoken, and always willing to help. But behind that polished exterior, Edward hid a secret far darker than anyone could have imagined. In 2023, a 32-year-old woman named Lila Anderson went missing while backpacking across the UK. Her last known location, a rideshare stop just 10 miles from Cambridge. Weeks passed. Her phone was off, her bank cards unused. Her body was eventually found by hikers, buried in shallow woodland graves with surgical precision. Her limbs were dismembered post-mortem, but the cuts were too clean, almost clinical. The local media dubbed it the surgeon's CUTAS. The police dug deeper. More cases emerged. Young women, tourists, runaways, exchange students, all found in similar conditions across East Anglia. The victims had no direct connection, but the MO, the clean cuts, minimal blood at the scene and disposal sites, were strikingly similar. Scotland Yard formed a task force. That's when criminal profiler Elise Macready got involved. She noticed something chilling. The surgical precision was not just a detail, it was a signature. A breakthrough came when CCTV footage near one of the body sites revealed a familiar car, a black BMW registered to Dr. Edward Langston. At first it seemed inconceivable, but investigators began tracking his movements. Every time a victim disappeared, he was nearby. Police discreetly installed a GPS tracker on his vehicle and surveillance at his property. What they uncovered left even the most seasoned detectives speechless. In his private garden shed, locked from the inside, they found surgical tools, scalpels, bleach, a drain, and a freezer with biological traces. DNA confirmed it belonged to two missing girls. A breakthrough came when CCTV footage near one of the body sites revealed a familiar car, a black BMW registered to Dr. Edward Langston. At first it seemed inconceivable, but investigators began tracking his movements. Every time a victim disappeared, he was nearby. Police discreetly installed a GPS tracker on his vehicle and surveillance at his property. What they uncovered left even the most seasoned detectives speechless. In his private garden shed, locked from the inside, they found surgical tools, scalpels, bleach, a drain, and a freezer with biological traces. DNA confirmed it belonged to two missing girls. Edward had meticulously crafted his second life. Every 3 months, under the guise of international aid missions, he would lure victims online through fake profiles, offering mentorship or short-term jobs. He used burner phones, encrypted chats, and crypto payments. Some of the victims were never even reported missing due to their transient lifestyles. But what shook investigators most was the journal they found. In it, Edward described the murders, not with remorse, but with clinical detachment. He logged each case like a medical procedure. One entry read, "Patient 7, blonde, 24, healthy cardiovascular system. Death induced by ketamine overdose. Dismemberment complete in 43 minutes." On October 17, 2024, Edward Langston was arrested outside the hospital after finishing a successful 6-hour surgery. Colleagues watched in disbelief as he was taken away in cuffs. In court he pled not guilty. His defense team tried to argue mental illness, even medical delusions from years of stress and PTSD. But the evidence was overwhelming. The journal, the DNA, the videos recovered from encrypted drives. The media frenzy exploded across the UK, USA, Australia, and Europe. International headlines read, "Doctor of Death, Surgical Serial Killer, and the Cambridge Cannibal." The though there was no evidence of cannibalism. Podcasts, documentaries, and even TikTok sleuths poured over the case. His trial became one of the most viewed court livestreams in UK history. In March 2025, Edward Langston was convicted of 9 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole. Investigators still suspect the number could be higher, possibly as many as 17 victims. His wife Margaret disappeared from public view. The children changed their names. The house was auctioned, but no one dared live in it. The case changed UK privacy laws, rideshare regulations, and inspired multiple reforms in how missing persons are handled. Narrator. In a world obsessed with appearances, Edward Langston showed how easily evil can wear a mask of charm, success, and service. Behind the accolades and surgical scrubs was a predator who turned the tools of healing into instruments of horror. This wasn't just a story about a killer, it was a warning. The most dangerous people are often the ones you'd never suspect. The investigation into Edward Langston began quietly, with Cambridge police forming a covert unit to analyze patterns in the recent string of disappearances. Early leads were scarce, and Langston's spotless reputation made him an unlikely suspect. 2. Investigators conducted forensic reviews of crime scenes across East Anglia. What struck them was the unusual precision of the post-mortem dismemberments, indicating someone with advanced anatomical knowledge. 3. The task force consulted with forensic pathologists, who confirmed that the cuts were consistent with surgical training. This revelation immediately narrowed the suspect pool to medical professionals. 4. Officers pulled records of all registered surgeons within a 30-mile radius of each victim's last known location. Langston's name appeared more than once, but his status as a respected figure made the pattern hard to accept. 5. Undercover officers were assigned to monitor Langston's routines. They followed him on hospital rounds, tracked his weekend trips, and analyzed his social interactions, all without tipping him off. 6. When police accessed local CCTV and traffic cams, they were able to cross-reference timestamps with missing persons reports. In 2 cases, Langston's car was seen near the location where bodies were later discovered. 7. The break came when detectives retrieved a partial license plate from a petrol station camera, matching Langston's BMW. From that point forward, he became the prime suspect. 8. A warrant was quietly secured to install a GPS tracker on Langston's vehicle. Within days, the data revealed visits to several isolated woodland areas previously linked to other victim discoveries. 9. Surveillance teams watched his home, documenting strange late-night activity. Once, they observed him carrying large duffel bags into his locked shed, which had no windows and was reinforced from the inside. 10. Forensic teams prepared for a high-stakes raid. When they entered the shed, they found not only surgical tools and cleaning supplies but also biological evidence stored in industrial coolers. 11. A digital forensics team analyzed Langston's laptops and storage devices. They discovered encrypted folders containing videos, photos, and detailed logs of each murder, evidence damning enough to ensure a conviction. 12. Police also uncovered burner phones and false online profiles used to lure victims under the guise of internships or travel aid programs. Langston's digital footprint revealed a methodical predator. 13. Interpol was notified when similar cases surfaced in Belgium and northern France, locations Langston had visited under the pretense of medical conferences. Cross-border collaboration began immediately. 14. Authorities held off on an immediate arrest, choosing instead to collect as much evidence as possible to avoid a mistrial. They built a timeline, victim by victim, supported by forensic science, digital records, and surveillance. 15. On October 17, 2024, Langston was arrested at the hospital, moments after completing a surgery. The operation was swift, coordinated, and silent, just like the killer they had pursued for over a year. The arrest of Edward Langston sent shockwaves through the UK and rapidly spread across global news outlets. Within hours, headlines dominated the front pages. Doctor turned serial killer, surgeon of death, and Cambridge's dark secret. 2. Social media exploded with speculation, theories, and outrage. Hashtags like hashtag Edward Langston, hashtag Doctor of Death, and hashtag Surgeon's Cut trended for weeks. 3. News anchors, true crime commentators, and YouTube sleuths jumped on the case. The mix of horror and disbelief captivated millions. 4. Public reactions were intense. Citizens in Cambridge protested outside the hospital and his residence, demanding answers and accountability. 5. International media flew into Cambridge for live coverage, making the Langston case the most reported British crime since the Yorkshire Ripper. 6. People who had once praised Langston, patients, colleagues, neighbors, came forward to express shock, betrayal, and fear. "He saved my child's life," one mother cried during a televised interview. 7. Podcasts dedicated entire episodes and even full seasons to dissecting the case. Some explored his medical background. Others speculated on his motives. 8. Mental health experts and criminologists debated whether Langston was born a psychopath or shaped by trauma from his humanitarian work. 9. Public outrage wasn't just directed at Langston. The hospital and regulatory bodies were scrutinized for failing to detect warning signs. 10. A national inquiry was launched to assess background checks, reporting systems, and how such a man could evade suspicion for years. 11. Langston's mugshot became iconic, widely circulated and often edited into disturbing artwork that went viral. 12. Protesters demanded that all of his surgeries be reviewed, fearing he may have harmed patients intentionally. Hospitals were flooded with requests for records. 13. Newspapers sold record numbers of copies. Documentaries were greenlit by Netflix, BBC, and even HBO. Everyone wanted the story. 14. Edward Langston's trial was televised. Millions watched live as witnesses described his charm, brilliance, and hidden cruelty. 15. Inside the courtroom, seats were filled every day by journalists, victims' families, and curious locals. Outside, people held vigils and placards reading, "Justice for the Forgotten." 16. Support groups formed for families of the victims, and donations poured in to fund memorials and scholarships in their names. 17. Schools added psychological safety seminars, using Langston's story to teach students about hidden predators and internet safety. 18. The justice system came under fire for delays and gaps in missing persons investigations. Reforms were proposed in Parliament. 19. Survivors of attempted abductions began coming forward. One woman in particular had escaped Langston's grip years ago and was never believed, until now. 20. The case sparked a massive shift in how professionals, especially doctors, are screened for mental health and behavioral red flags. 21. Cambridge residents reported feeling a lingering sense of paranoia. "I used to trust everyone here," one resident told the BBC. "Now I look twice." 22. Rumors spread that Langston had accomplices. Although none were proven, it added a layer of fear and speculation that fueled online discourse. 23. His family, wife Margaret and the children, became reclusive. Tabloids tried to photograph them, but legal injunctions were filed for protection. 24. Conspiracy theorists also emerged, some claiming Langston was part of a larger elite network. These fringe theories went viral, despite lack of evidence. 25. In the end, Edward Langston was more than just a killer in a white coat. He became a symbol of how deeply evil can be buried beneath excellence, charm, and a trusted profession. Chapter 8. Verdict and Aftermath. 32:01. 35:00. In March 2025, Edward Langston was convicted of 9 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole. Investigators still suspect the number could be higher, possibly as many as 17 victims. His wife Margaret disappeared from public view. The children changed their names. The house was auctioned, but no one dared live in it. The case changed UK privacy laws, rideshare regulations, and inspired multiple reforms in how missing persons are handled. Outro. 35:01 End. Narrator. In a world obsessed with appearances, Edward Langston showed how easily evil can wear a mask of charm, success, and service. Behind the accolades and surgical scrubs was a predator who turned the tools of healing into instruments of horror. This wasn't just a story about a killer, it was a warning. The most dangerous people are often the ones you'd never suspect. End screen music fades in. Voiceover. If you found this case chilling, subscribe for more real crime stories every week. Hit the bell icon. You never know what story's coming next.